Gentlemen, I went fishing this weekend and I caught some Mustangs. Y'all tell me what I've got, because I really don't know. So a listener sends me an email and says, hey, I saw the Alabama Barn Find collections, awesome set of GMs, but I've got some good Fords and I want to sell them. They're covered in insulation. I haven't messed with them in 20 years and I want to sell them to you. So I write back, what is it? He's like, well, I got a 71 Boss, I've got a 71 Mach 1, but I got a 69 Boss 9. And I'm like, I'm listening. Dwayne, I've never bought a real classic Mustang like this in my life ever. I know GM.
And ever since you started doing it,
yeah.
I've seen, I thought, you know,
he don't know Fords.
My cars would be perfect in his collection because you don't have any.
All right, so this is the 70?
That's a 71 Boss 351.
Normally, you buy them after you look at them. I've already bought these son of a bitches. You're just telling me about the shit I bought.
My wife, she said, did they come look at them? I said, no. No.
I'll look at the old 8-track.
Yes, I'll even leave it in there if you want me to.
What is this? Is it the Eagles?
Actually, it's Eric Clapton.
All right, even better.
Like
when was the last time this thing was out and running, do you know?
I would probably say at least 30 years on both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is a 69 Boss 9.
I've got some paperwork with this one too.
All right, good. Look at that insulation.
Yeah, see that's what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
Oh wow, Boss 429 right here.
They built them in 1969 and 70 to compete on NASCAR. I don't know if you looked at the door tag, it says NASCAR, KK 1355.
Okay.
But the big thing was when people bought these, this is the smog canister. They'd throw it away. Smog pump, throw it away.
Okay.
Air snorkel, throw it away.
So this makes it worth more because it's got all the original.
I paid back in the day $5,000 for this.
Get the out of here.
Right here.
You know your car, these cars. Okay, what are we looking at?
It's a 71 Mach 1 with a 429 Cobra Jet. Not the Super Cobra Jet, but the Cobra Jet.
So when he opens up this barn and I start looking at these cars, I realize this is a time capsule. Here it is again. Here we go again. We got another time capsule, but this is a Ford time capsule. It's not as big as the Alabama Barn Find, but it's kind of better. So we got these babies loaded up, and we are bringing them right here to the GMTV Garage in Walnut Springs, Texas, to figure out exactly what it is we've got. So that's a 71, that's a 69, that's a 71. This is they call it a Boss 9, which is a big deal.
Yep, 429.
We paid a lot of money for these cars.
Yeah.
Gary and Muffy helped me. Now, like I've said, I'm not the Ford guru. I send these to Gary, he says, get on it. You know, Gary was the VP of Barrett-Jackson for 20 years. Long ponytailed dude, you know, on the block with Jay Leno and everybody else. If you guys watch Barrett-Jackson, you know Gary Bennett. He's part of GMTV. Muffy, his old lady, which is a lot better looking than he is, she's got a head on her shoulders too. I love having them part of the Gimme the VIN team because this week we had somebody try to put a fake Dodge Challenger in the system, claiming it was numbers matched, and claiming it was all this, and they sniffed it out and realized it was a fake, it was a fraud, it was a counterfeit. We just stopped the presses. But if somebody would have hit the bait on that, it'd have been a $300,000 screw up. You got to know your stuff when you're dealing with these cars. There's a lot of shysters out there. And you got to have the old salted sea with their eyeball on it. Gary even sold Barris's Batmobile, the one that's sitting over at Galpin. I was there last week. So when both Muffy and Gary are telling you to get the car bought, you need to get the cars bought.
This car here, there's only around 500 built in 69 and a little less than that in 70, so I only built it for 2 years. These two cars on either side are 71s, and they only built these two cars for like 3 months into the run. Then they went away, they weren't available.
Why?
Emissions standards, you know, were coming in, and insurance companies were really coming down on all the manufacturers because of the danger and the speed.
You got to remember in the 60s, it was an arms race to see who could have the biggest and the baddest of the muscle cars. 69 was the height of this. Pontiac released the 389 GTO. Chevy comes out with a 396 Camaro. In 68, the first Hemi Cudas hit the ground. They smoked everywhere. Ford comes out with a 429. We're getting bigger, faster, badder by the minute. Then, whoa, people start crashing. Parents start getting scared. Insurance starts getting scared. We can't insure these cars. Oh my God, California's full of smog. We got to smog these cars. We got to slow down the exhaust. It changed it. It muffled it. It stopped it. But 69, 70, 71, that's right there at the end of free breathing, huge displacement, badass factory muscle.
So these are like, both of these cars are really hyper performance cars. This car here,
The Boss 9?
yeah, it's the top of the heap, you know, when it comes to just a Mustang.
Why?
Because of its rarity, the engine.
So why is this one so good?
Because of the rarity of it. You know, these cars are super rare too, but so they're great, but this was something different. This car was built to homologate that motor for NASCAR racing. So they had to build like 100 of them, and that's about what they did.
Kind of like a Superbird?
Yeah. They only built it for 2 years. It's basically a Hemi. They can't call it that because Chrysler owns that name, you know.
Okay.
But Ford built the car, and then they sent it to one of their contractors, Carcraft, in Michigan. So they sent this car to Carcraft as a Mach 1 428 Super Cobra Jet drag pack car. So that means
that's a Cobra Jet, isn't it?
That's a 429 Cobra Jet.
Okay.
That was only in a Mustang for like 3 months.
Okay. So is that how this one started?
No, it had the FE 428 Cobra Jet.
Okay.
They pulled all that out. It uses the transmission from the Cobra Jet 428. It's got the 31 spline axle with the 391 or 430 gear in the back. The Super Cobra Jets, you know, FEs had an oiling problem, and so they used this big oil cooler. All of this, and then Carcraft had to cut this car to pieces.
This is just an external oil cooler that's only on this car?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like our Terminator Mustang, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
this was that of that day.
Yeah.
Well, this one was better because it was made for NASCAR. Now it makes sense because I'm kind of a Superbird queer, and this sounds like the same storyline.
It sort of is. And if you look in the door panel, it has a NASCAR tag in it.
And what is that tag all about?
It's in all Boss 429 cars.
Okay. So the KK stands for Carcraft?
Yeah.
So that was their tag?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Carcraft built this car for Ford, or at least installed the engine, and to do so, it was a lot of work. They cut this big notch right here on the apron at the shock tower. This was cut. They cut the shock tower out. They moved it down and out.
So they brought the shock tower down.
And
Why?
out.
And out.
Because they couldn't get this big motor in
Ah.
here. Then, notice how this motor is so far forward. They moved this engine forward in the car 3 inches, which made it tremendously nose heavy, which made these cars almost undrivable.
So they made this car so they could have a NASCAR car.
That is the only
Period.
reason.
End of story.
And then they built this engine and ran it in NASCAR for several years.
And how did it do?
It did very well.
How did it do against the Hemis?
It did real well.
Because it was a Hemi?
Yeah, it's a Hemi, but
without the brand?
Nobody can call it any of that. Nobody can call anything a Hemi, even if it is, because Chrysler Corporation copyrighted that name.
Right.
And so you would have to pay them. Ford didn't want to pay Chrysler, I don't think. So it's been restored.
In like 80. Yeah, and not, it has not been restored, I don't think, since
yeah, this,
I don't know if it's been restored or not, to tell you the truth.
I don't even think it's been painted. And if they did it right, because they painted it and then put the bolts in it like Ford would have.
Does this car need a restoration?
I don't think it does. I think because how many miles are on it? 28,527 miles. less than 30,000 miles. I don't think it needs restoration. If he bought it in 1980 and it wasn't driven very much, these are probably all the original parts on it for the most part.
Is this the best car you've ever seen in the shop?
In this shop?
Not a bad one, huh? It's the dirtiest one too, and we're not allowed to touch it.
Yeah.
They want it dirty.
Yeah.
Which one is better out of these two, orange and yellow?
Well, that one, because it's complete. This one has parts missing off of it.
But if they were both 10-point car restos ready to go?
If they were both new, probably the Boss 351 is the fastest. It's a 4-speed car, and it was, they claim now that the Boss 351 Cleveland was the most powerful small block of the 70s. This one, I'm not sure it's a Boss motor or not. It does not have the right carburetor on it. It possibly could. It's got adjustable valve train, so it's possible that it is, but it doesn't have the right carburetor on it.
What's the difference between a Cobra Jet and a Super Cobra Jet?
The Cobra Jet has hydraulic lifters. It has a Ford Autolite carburetor. Actually, most of them had a Quadrajet on them. Ford used a Rochester Quadrajet on the Cobra Jet. The Super Cobra Jet has a big Holly. It has solid lifters. It has higher compression. It's a nasty, nasty motor. But this right here ain't no joke either, because they do run quite well.
So which one's worth more ready to go? And both, like I said, in 10-point condition. Orange, the Boss, or the, what's that one called?
That's a Boss.
That's a Boss. This is a Mach. Mach or Boss? Mach or Boss, yeah.
Probably pretty close.
Are they pretty close?
Because they're both so rare.
Okay.
Now, as far as, you know, the three of them, obviously the 9 is the Boss 9 is the most valuable. It's probably, of the cars manufactured by Ford, and of course, it didn't really manufacture by Ford. All of it was manufactured and they took it all apart.
I'm gonna start it. I think this one runs. Windows work. Door panel's cracked, so that all needs to be done. This one needs the
electric
resto.
windows?
Yeah. Is that odd?
That's super rare in the Mustang.
Okay. Look at this one. I mean, you got to see these things were covered in insulation, and look at, they're, you know, these are barn finds.
Okay, what kind of music was it? Oh, Clapton, Eric Clapton.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Awesome. I like it.
Just one night.
Sadly enough, we hand sold this 3-pack of Mustangs pretty quick. They needed a lot of restoration. That 429's a big car. It needed a couple of $100,000 spent on it to get it perfect. And there was a guy that wanted to do it. Muffy and Gary sold it to him before I had a chance to stop it, to tell you the truth. But we've talked about that. We're not going to make that mistake again, because I would have rather done it right here. If you want to sell yours, go to GMTVCC. That's GiveMeTheVINClassicCollector.com, or just give me the VIN. But we have the pro buyers for Classic and Collectors at GMTVCC. We buy them all the time. We have a Classic and Collector sale in Dallas once a month. And I really enjoy messing with these cars. If you're new to the channel and you want to watch how we got so many GM barn find cars in here, that video, the Alabama barn find, is going to click up right after this one right now.